Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. And it is so good to have you all here. We're going to be talking about empowerment and quantum human designs. We do have a handout for the session today. I want to make sure that as we go through this material, whether you're new to human design or whether you've been doing human design for a while, I do want to make sure that you have everything you need to really deeply integrate this information. And I know that for some of you, having that extra step helps integrate. That helps me. I have to take notes. If I don't take notes, it's like in one ear and out the other. I want to talk about something before we get started. We are in a really interesting time on the planet, in case you haven't noticed, right? We've got this overarching theme. If we look at all the planets and we look at the themes that the planets are playing out for us, we've got this overarching theme of change, of transition, transformation. Old, outdated structures are falling apart, and we're in the process of really figuring out, how do we build something new, right? How do we create something that is a better reflection of who we are? Next week, we're getting ready to have another big planetary shift. Uranus goes into Gemini. That's like, I think, the fourth or fifth major planet that shifted signs this year. And that's really significant, right? That sets us up really until 2033, I think, for some really big changes. And part of what's changing is the need for us to become more authentic in how we express ourselves into the world. We are finding our voice or reclaiming our voice. We are finding our power, reclaiming our power. And as we do that, we're also redefining all of it, right? If I say the word power to you all right now, take a second. And when I say power, what comes to mind? Put it in chat. When I say the word power, what comes to mind? I know that for me, in the story that I learned as a person who's been on this planet for 60 years, power is about taking, usurping, seizing, right? It is about, it's something that we want, or I grew up being conditioned to want it, but also to resist it, right? So you all put self-empowerment, autonomy, influence, balance, owning my strength, choice, change, stability, authority. You guys have good thoughts about power. I like that. You guys should be leading the world. Energy, rapport, government authority, sovereignty, aligned energy, blessing others, make the ability to make change, force change, capacity to take action, inner strength, and misuse, right? So we are sort of blowing up these old ideas and reclaiming them. And one of the things that's so beautiful about human design is it does give us this map, right? And it gives us this sort of blueprint for the human story. And that blueprint is about us individually, right? Our own unique chart is a map for what we need to learn, what we need to reclaim sovereignty over, right? What we need to integrate to become the fulfillment of that unique role that only each and every one of us can play. We each have a unique role that only we can play. And it also gives us a blueprint for how do we better define the things that are inherent to being human. We're in a time when that story about power is changing a lot. And we need people who are able to usher and midwife and move people into these new expressions. There's new studies that came out, new research that came out last year, 2024, talking about what are people stressed and worried about. In this new survey that I was reading, the statistics were mind blowing to me. It was like 68%. Sorry, 68% of people are chronically stressed. That's like 2/3 of us, right? That 68% of people were experiencing chronic workplace distress, right? 68%, so like 2/3 of people really are not happy at work. People were worried, and the biggest fear that they had was a fear of the future, right? That they were afraid that they'd have no control over what was happening in the world outside of themselves. And all of this energy can be restored, can be healed, can be realigned when we recover our sense of purpose, who we are, and our connection to our authentic self. So let's talk a little bit today about how do we do that, and what does human design have to do with that journey of reclaiming And how do we move back into intentionally creating and navigating this space of radical shift and change that we're in as well? So, all right. For those of you who I have not had the privilege of meeting yet, my name is Dr. Karen Parker. I'm the founder and creator of Quantum Human Design and the Quantum Alignment System. I'm a multiple best-selling author. I've written, as of August of this year, I will have written 24 books. I am the world's top-selling human design author. My book, Understanding Human Design, which some of you may have seen, the 15-year anniversary edition is coming out on Monday, July the 7th, which is kind of exciting. 15 years doesn't feel like that long anymore. I have a PhD in integrative medicine. I have been an emotional freedom techniques practitioner, that's in energy psychology techniques, and a hands-on energy healer since 2000, and actually did Healing Touch before 2000. I've been a life coach since 1998. I was actually one of the very first life coaches officially trained in the world. I studied with and worked for Ra Uru Hu, the founder of traditional human design. I've been teaching human design since 1999. I'm a Quantum University guest lecturer, a TEDx presenter. I am the host of the Quantum Revolution podcast, and I am an Omega Institute Shift Network and Humanities Team faculty member. I am just really very excited to be here with you talking about human design and empowerment. So I want to just share with you a little bit about what I'm going to talk about with you today. We're going to talk about who is human design for, right? Who is human design for? We're going to talk about the dilemma of human design, because human design, as it's gained popularity and traction, it definitely has a dilemma associated with it. And if we don't understand it, it actually can just become another trap rather than a tool to liberate yourself. We're going to talk about traditional human design and quantum human design and why you need to know both. We're going to talk about the science of conditioning and deconditioning. What exactly does that mean? We're going to talk a little bit about the quantum human design specialist certification training and how you can learn to use human design for yourself, your family, if you're in any kind of a helping profession, for your clients, and of course, as a powerful tool to change the world. Whoop, and not go backward in time. All right. So I want to just set you up as we talk about this, and I talk about quantum human design and our specialist training program. I just want to set you up to know that this isn't just a program for people who want to use it professionally. A lot of our students use this training to go deep into studying their own human design for themselves, their friends, their family, and even for fun. So I don't want you to think, as I go through the information I'm going to share with you way at the end of this program about our training system, I don't want you to think that, oh, well, I don't really want to do it professionally. This is also our path for anyone who wants to learn more about human design. But enough about that. Let's talk about human design, traditional human design, and quantum human design, and what it does, and why quantum human design is such an essential part of the conversation that we have when we talk about traditional human design. So when I first learned human design, I was trained by the founder of traditional human design, and I worked for him for several years. And I was trained deeply in what I now call traditional human design. Now, when I was studying and working with Ra, the founder of traditional human design, always said that traditional human design was designed to be taught to what he called the not self, meaning when you learn traditional human design, it is a tool for you to help yourself become the person you were born to be. And we have to use this tool because most of us, when we start our journey of personal growth and development, we start that journey from a place that we call conditioned, meaning when we are conditioned, it means that 95% of who we think we are has been internalized and taught to us, and is oftentimes even stored inside of us on a genetic level, and is programmed into us by imprinting. We'll talk more about that later. It's programmed into us by our family of origin, through our lived experiences, even from our ancestral lineage. So much of who we think we are growing up isn't really who we are. It's who we've been told we should be. It's the societal norms, our familial expectations, the things we learned that we should do in order to be successful. And when we enter into our personal growth journey, when we start to go through a process of saying, hey, my life doesn't feel like I want it to feel. I'm not enjoying it. I'm one of that 68% that's experiencing chronic stress or fear of the future, or I've lost connection to my purpose, or my workplace feels distressing to me. When we hit those places where it becomes a crisis and we have to dismantle it, either intentionally or sometimes unintentionally, right? Sometimes we have a health crisis or we get laid off or stuff happens or our relationships come apart. When we hit that spot, oftentimes that growth edge is where we A, find human design, or it finds us, and B, is where we decide to begin our healing journey. And human design, and especially traditional human design, is a part and parcel a healing journey. It helps you discover who you are and who you aren't. And it's a powerful tool to help you learn to live true to your original blueprint, who you came here to be. And when we learn traditional human design, one of the things that you learn is that you are one of 5 energy types. And that energy type has a specific way of making decisions. And that specific way of making decisions serves one very, very important function that we don't talk about a lot. And that is your strategy for your type, the way in which you are designed to remember how to make good decisions. That strategy is about getting you back in your body and getting back in touch with your natural inner compass of what feels right to you and what doesn't. And we have to go follow strategy and our type, our strategy, and our authority, things you learn in traditional human design in the beginning. You have to do that in the beginning again and again and again and again, sometimes for a very long time, because part of what we're doing is retraining. We're retraining ourselves to reconnect with our inner wisdom. Think about being 5 years old and imagine it's a beautiful day and you're in school and you see the playground outside the window and your whole body is saying, yes, I want to go play. I want to go be on the swings. I want to go outside and feel the sun on my skin and look at the daylight, glistening on the leaves. That's what our 5-year-old self wants to do. And in the front of the room is a grown-up saying, nope, you need to turn around, sit down, focus. We got some ABCs we got to learn. We got some numbers we got to do, right? And you have to eventually, in order to not go stark raving mad, and learn how to fit into the world, you have to learn how to shut your body off and follow the rules, right? And follow those rules. And so when we start to explore, who am I? What am I here to do? What's my purpose? Why am I here? The very first thing we have to do is get back in touch with the wisdom of our body, because it knows. Right? It knows what we need. It knows what we need to do. And we have to get out of our head and stop using our mind to try to figure out the answers and let our bodies guide us into what we need to be doing. Now, Ra taught, and this is the dilemma, one of the dilemmas of human design. Ra used to teach that we have no choice, that we are who we are. And I call this the doctrine of no choice. And one of the things I want to gently say to you is that you do have choice. In fact, science shows us that we always have choice unless we're stuck in a reactive pattern. And it is so important when we study human design that we remember we have choice, and that learning how to reconnect with the body and the wisdom of the body actually gives us unlimited choices. We won't when we become naturally attuned back to our authentic self. When you become and you remember, oh, this is the person I was born to be, right? This is the things I dreamed about when I was still being myself before I got conditioned, right? When we reconnect with that, the things that we naturally choose to do are going to be the things that bring us into harmony with our natural self. And if we're not careful, and this is true of anything you might learn, if we're not careful to reclaim and calibrate and own, and I would even say proclaim and defend our capacity to consciously choose, and we buy into the idea that, oh, I have no choice, and we forget that when Ross said no choice, he wasn't saying you don't have any choice over your life. He was saying you don't have any choice really but to be yourself. And that's a beautiful choice, by the way. But and you still have choice about that, by the way. We can also choose to not be ourselves, but it's just not fun, right? It's not very fun. It's not very productive. A lot of times it's not even very healthy. Okay. You want to choose to be yourself. And from that place, you have a lot of options available to you. And pretty much those options are pretty amazing. So we also have to remember that we always have choice. You always have choice. Knowing who you are and dropping into the full authentic expression of the person you were born to be gives you a lot more choice and a lot more freedom to engineer a life that feels happy and that creates higher states of wellness in every area of your life. But traditional human design, as it's taught, is actually not complete. Ra always said that someday he would write a version of human design for the awakened person, for people who were not living out their conditioned story anymore. But he passed in 2011. He actually passed right before my book came out, which was really interesting timing. And when he passed, I carried with me for several years, I carried within me this his voice literally saying, human design as it's taught is designed to be taught to the not self. Someday I'm going to write a version of human design for the awakened self. He never got to do that. Ron never got to complete that work. And so traditional human design is to a certain degree incomplete. And after years of sitting with this voice in my head, I decided that it was time for me to really go back and explore what did Ra mean by that. I have always been very fortunate to attract very awakened, very aware people who have oftentimes already done a lot of work before they've even inner work before they've started their human design journey. And I wanted to find a way of talking about human design that met those people's needs as well. I had a lot of people who would come to me and who would say, I really love traditional human design, but I really don't resonate with some of it. I feel like there's something really important here, but I want more. And that was sort of my beginning journey of how to introduce quantum human design to the human design community. And really, what it is, it does not in any way negate traditional human design. We absolutely 100% need traditional human design. You need to know your type, your strategy, your authority. You have to live with it for a while in order to recover and heal that inner part of yourself that has to remember, what does a right decision feel like for me? Out of your head, back in the body, right? How does my body feel answering these questions? How does my body feel making these decisions? We have to heal that before we can then go on and live out what I'll call the quantum expression of our human design. So if you think of it this way, you'll see on this chart, this slide, there's sort of this measurement tool, right? On the left side, we have condition. Most of our clients or most of us show up in human design when in our shadow expression, in that unbalanced expression of who we are. And oftentimes we're experiencing the symptoms of it, right? We feel burned out, we feel stressed, we don't like our jobs, we feel like we're disconnected from our purpose. Our relationships aren't doing well. Sometimes even our bodies are really not optimal at all, right? And then we start living true to our type. We start recovering that connection to our body, recovering that connection to our authentic self. And eventually we move to where we bring ourselves back to baseline, right? And that's traditional human design. You live in that baseline expression and you know, this is how my body feels when it feels right. This is how my body feels when it doesn't feel right. And after a while, when you live at baseline, then you can begin to optimize your story. You can take it one step further or many step further because there's no end point, right? We can always evolve, keep evolving. You're going to keep evolving until you're not here anymore, right? At that point, when we are really solid and we really remember, oh, this is what it feels like in my body, then we can start living out the quantum expression. So some of you may have been in human design long enough to really have questions like, if I'm in the shower and I get an idea, and let's say you're a generator type and your sacral goes, yeah, that's a good idea. Can I respond to my idea? And I would say in the beginning of your human design journey, maybe not so much. Maybe practice that sacral response for a while. But once you really know that sacral response, I would say absolutely. At that point, you don't have to wait for something to respond to anymore. You can just go with the sacral response, your authority, right? And when you get to that point, then you can start to integrate and work with consciousness and consciously creating and optimizing your life story from a very different place. And that's really the purpose of quantum human design, is to give us a verbal template. And I say a verbal template because when I did this I crafted language that was measured. We actually took it into a lab and measured high frequency language. And we created an entirely different way to talk about human design. It's still human design, but a high frequency way to talk about human design to help us build an energetic framework for how to evolve our personal story. And so that's really kind of how we got from traditional human design to quantum human design. All right, the problem, as I said, the problem with traditional human design was that it was never designed to be a permanent lifestyle. It was a prescription for healing, or I like to call it holing, getting ourselves back in the body. It's also really not scientifically accurate in terms of the creative process. We are not bobbing along with no choice in our lives. We actually have choice. So let's talk about how do we tap into consciously choosing the way in which we create our lives. So I'm going to give you, I'll call it the parts of the equation of creativity, or the parts of the manifesting equation. Sometimes I call it basic quantum creativity. So right now, as you're watching this program, you are sitting in a field of infinite possibility. Literally, as you're sitting in front of your computer or your phone or your iPad, or hopefully if you're driving, you're paying attention to the road, right? You are literally sitting in a field of unmanifest potentials, an innumerable amount of unmanifest potentials. And those potentials include every variation of the possibility of your story, right? You could be rich, you could be poor, you could be living, at the top of the Eiffel Tower in the apartment that's up there. You can be living on a beach. There's all these possibilities for your personal story exist in an unmanifest state as pure potentials in this field of information, which is really what the quantum field is. It's a field of information. You have what we call, and this has a lot of different names. I like to call it the mental and emotional body. You have basically a filter that contains all your memories, your ancestral programming, all your societal expectations, your familial expectations, the artifacts of all the emotional experiences you had from your lived experiences. We call this your conditioning field, right? Everything that has formed who you think you are, all of those parts that make you who you think you are right now are part of your mental and emotional body. This is where you carry what we call your conditioning, meaning that 95% of you, that 95% of your identity that has been internalized and really started forming within you even before you were born, is held in this energy field. Think of it as like a big filter. It's an energy field filter, okay? And it's picking opportunities, possibilities out of the quantum field. The opportunities or the possibilities that it chooses is determined by your conditioning, right? The next part of the creative equation is the subtle body. We have an energy template that sometimes you might call it the biofield or the energy field or your aura. We have an energy template that holds in place everything that we're about to create, or everything that we have already created in our life, and everything that we're in the process of discreating. So you have an energy template that's kind of holding everything in place. If you are a projector, this is a big part of what you see in the world. When you go and you interact with people, this is what you sense and feel. You see the potentials, you see the possibilities, you see where they're at, you see their stories, you see how they got here, you see what they're getting ready to change, what they need to change, what they need to fix, because you're reading this energy template. And really, when we work with people and we're helping people and supporting people, we also have to work on this energetic level in some way. And some of the training systems that we have, we work with this, but we're not going to talk about that today. And then last but not least, part of the creative equation is your manifested reality. It's your life right now. So right now, you're living in a story, a manifested story that started off originally as a non-manifested story. You pick as a potential, right? You picked that potential by virtue of your conditioning, the story you tell about who you are and how you are. Because of that story, you chose possibilities, potentials that matched your story. And then you consciously create, or maybe unconsciously, in some cases, you unconsciously chose these options, created them in your life right now, and they are reflecting back at you to show you exactly where you are in the process of your growth and expansion. A different way of thinking about this, if you imagine that the top of this slide is the quantum field of infinite potential, the bottom of the slide is your life right now, in the middle there's a filter. right? And in this filter, you have the story of who you are, and included in that story is your human design. This is the interface that shows you how your energy operates. And notice that I'm saying the word how, because one of the other dilemmas of traditional human design, and this isn't actually human design that's the problem, it's us that's the problem, is that sometimes we tend to look at human design as a labeling system. I am a this, right? And actually, your human design is a map for how you use energy. You're not a what, you're a how, right? I love Buckminster Fuller says, I don't know what I am, but I seem to be a verb, right? You are a verb, you are not a noun. And it's so easy, it's comforting, right? To define ourselves with labels. We like labels, that it helps us combat the unknown. But in reality, you're not a what, you're a how. And if we use human design as a labeling system, I'm a fifth line, I'm a this type, we run the risk of actually locking ourselves into very limited possibilities for what we can choose to create with our lives. So your human design is part of your story, right? And it helps you understand how you are, and it helps you reconnect with who you are. So you are the story you tell about yourself. So if we take this to a different place in quantum physics, and we go back to that quantum field of infinite potential, what's living in that quantum field of infinite potential is moving quantum particles, right? And quantum particles are zipping, moving. They're, we can't see them, we can't perceive them. They're living as possibilities, as potentials. And when quantum physicists go to measure those potentials, they can either measure the movement of these particles, right? Or they can measure the location of the particle, but they can never measure the movement and the location at the same time. Part of what happens is that when you have an expectation about where you think a quantum particle is going to show up, it shows up where you expect it to, right? And it stops moving and it drops. Quantum physicists call it collapse. It collapses out of potential into manifested reality. Okay, so you can either only measure the movement or the location of the quantum particle, but not both at the same time. Movement, when a quantum particle is moving, it's in pure potential state. So right now you're sitting in an infinite field of moving potentials. When it's located, when that particle drops into manifestation, it's located. The meaning or the expectations that we have determines which of those potentials collapse or manifest into our reality. So the meanings we have, in other words, the stories we tell, determine what we manifest. The meanings we have about potentials, rich, poor, healthy, all these archetypes, all these ideas, the meanings that we have are determined by our conditioning field. That's the mental and emotional body. And if we want to create something different with our lives, we oftentimes have to start with changing the meanings that we have about our lives, about the archetypes that we're experiencing, expressing, and creating in our lives. Well, what does that mean? It means our perception of the world determines what we create and the potentials that we activate in the quantum field. So we're going to do a little experiment here. I want you to just take a moment and look at this slide, and you'll see on this slide there's the word serve. And what I want you to do when you see this word serve, this slide, oops, is I want you to think about the term serve, to serve, and I want you to think about it in the context of money. Okay? I want you to think about I want to serve the world, and I want you to think about serving the world in the context of money. All right? Then here's what I want you to do. Post your thoughts in chat. Post your thoughts in chat. So think about the word to serve, the phrase to serve, and I think about it in the context of money. So Susanna says purpose, regenerative, giving away, philanthropist, abundance. The more I serve, the more money I receive. Serving the world, I can create abundant amounts of money. Well, you guys have got a lot of thoughts here. Giving, abundance, using it to solve problems, community, sharing my knowledge for income, prosperity, giving, gifting. You guys are good. You guys are really, you got some good meanings going on there. Generosity, supporting people into creating their vision, helping those with less, expansion. I'm loving this, you guys. Restorative for others. Nice, nice. Love. That's a good one too. All right. So when we see the word to serve, right, that's just a story. It's part of a story. It's a verb in the English language, right? And when we think about serving and we think about taking care of people, you all, when you think about being in service, you think of it as an abundance exchange. That's amazing. Sometimes when we talk about service, we talk about martyrdom, or we want our service to reward us, but we're so conditioned to not see our value that we give too much away, right? And when we give too much away, then we don't get that equal exchange, and then we can't do the work that calls us, right? There's a lot of different meanings in the way that can show up. I want to assure you that it's completely possible for you to serve and receive the support and the sustainability that you deserve in response to your service. In fact, the world needs that from you right now, right? And so when I say that, as I see like some of the things that you all are saying, it is completely, and in fact, I would say vital at this point on the planet for us to cultivate a story that says it is now time for people who are healing the world, who have a calling to heal the world. And I suspect that's probably most of you, if not all of you on this call. It is now time for those of us who are here to heal the world, to midwife this new era into being, right? As we birth it, right? It is time for us to stand in the power and the value of what we do, and for us to be fully supported in doing that work, because that is the work. Getting everybody back in touch with their authentic self and deeply aligned with their value, their right place in the cosmic plan is the most, I believe, this is my world, right? And in my world, the most important work we can do on the planet right now. And if that's the work that calls you, you also deserve, you need to be fully supported. You need to be fully supported because you can't keep doing it if you're not. And you can't, especially those of you, all my poor, beautiful, gifted projectors, right? Those of you who are doing this work, who have felt called to do this work, probably, since you were 2 and 3 years old, you have to be able to do this work in a way that sustains you, because you can't do both. You can't work a day job and do this stuff on the side. You're not supposed to, right? So it's time. It's time. So I really want to continue to invite us all into cultivating a set of meanings, expectations around being in service, however you feel called to be in service, and also being supported. So let's look at what just happened here. When you saw the word serve and we began to talk about service, it caused a photon storm, a storm of light to go off in your brain. That photon storm, in turn, created a series of neurotransmitters. So your brain, in response to this photon storm, created neurotransmitters. That's a chemical. That chemical is measurable in your body, right? I literally can go in the lab and we can measure the neurotransmitters that you just created in response to light. So stop for just a minute, because this is so, so important. We forget to acknowledge ourselves for this. This is how powerful you are. In that moment, when you saw the word serve, you turned light into matter. Literally. Your brain produced photon storm. That's light. Photon storm created your response in your brain that made your brain produce neurotransmitters. That's a chemical. That's how flippin' powerful you are. You can turn light into matter. Okay? Those neurotransmitters in turn created a specific emotional response. Now, the specific emotional response came in response to your meanings, right? And so if you saw the word serve and you were like, heck yeah, I'm ready to serve and get paid and have a good life and be able to rest and recharge and renew and regenerate and also do the thing that my soul is calling me to do and I'm looking forward to it and I'm excited, then you have good positive meanings about that. If you saw that word and you had that idea and you thought, the world's not ready for that yet, I'm not ready for that yet, I don't know how I'm going to do that. If it triggered maybe a little bit of despair or maybe a little bit of confusion or exhaustion in you, right? That's because you have meanings that match those emotional responses. Now, that emotional response is going to do one of two things. If you have positive meanings, which is why we created quantum human design, because we wanted really strong positive meanings about the chart. If you have positive meanings, that's going to program your body and your heart in particular into a state of coherence, which is a highly creative, highly attractive state. And it actually programs the electromagnetic resonance field of your heart. We call it the monopole in human design. It programs that monopole to call in opportunities and experiences that match those stories. If you had meanings that were not so positive about being of service and being able to sustain service in the world, that might have kicked you into a low grade fight or flight response, a stress response. And when we go into stress responses, we activate the amygdala, that place where much of our identity is stored, and we keep reacting without choice, right? We keep reacting out of patterns again and again and again. And those patterns are protective patterns, they're defensive patterns. Those patterns that we have, those reactive patterns, are oftentimes there because somewhere along the way, we internalize the message that it was not okay or safe for us to be who we are or how we are. And when we internalize that message, we go into defense mode, right? And we react to stimulus. And instead of consciously choosing, what do I want from this situation, we go into defense mode and we react, and we keep ourselves stuck in a hamster wheel of making the same decision over and over and over again in a reactive pattern, which is part of what we tackle when we get ourselves back into the body and we reconnect with our authority and we learn our human design, right? We take back control over that space between stimulus and response. So photons were our creative medium, right, in the brain. What inspired the movement on the photons in the first place? Your story, right? If you're telling a story of, I know that I can be sustainably supported, I value myself, I value my knowledge, I value my work, even if the things that I want to do with my life are a little odd and on the fringe, because most of us are, right? And even though my family doesn't get what I'm doing, it's okay. I totally am here to do this work. I know I can do it. I know I can do it sustainably. No doubt. If that's your story, then you're creating that in your outer world, right? And that's going to show up. And if it's not your story, that's okay. If it's not your story yet, because it's going to become your story, because the more you keep learning about it, the more you're going to be given the information you need to rewrite that story in your mind so that you can create a better story that allows you to live the life you were born to live. That's the purpose of human design. That's the purpose of traditional human design. That's ultimately the purpose of quantum human design, is to give you back full control over the story you tell about who you are and how you are, so that you can consciously choose to build a life that you want for yourself. And we start always first with a story, right? So to create the reality you want to be experiencing, you have to tell a story that matches what you want. And if your story creates your reality, then you have to ask one of the most important questions, right? Who are you? Who are you really? And who is the you that's creating your reality? And what story are you telling about yourself? What story are you telling about yourself? And do you like the story you're telling? Is it producing the results that you want? So let's talk about if we don't like the story, or let's say you're working with clients and you can tell, okay, this person has a very limiting story. How do we get in here and rework this story? Let's talk about, first of all, how do we get the story in the first place, right? We need to understand what happens to make us internalize the story that it's not okay or safe or valuable or lovable to be who I am, right? We have to explore, how do we cultivate this story? How do we build this mask and this facade? And what do we need to do to take the mask down and to decondition the story so that we can move ourselves back into being the fully embodied expression of the person we were born to be? So in traditional human design, we talk about conditioning, and generally speaking, we talk about conditioning only through the lens of openness by center. So in traditional human design, and I'll break that down and tell you what that is in just a minute, we tend to only talk about conditioning through the lens of openness by center. One of the challenges is that if we only look at conditioning through the lens of openness by center, we're missing a lot of the other things that can also condition us. And I want to be really clear. This is really, I mean, we're having this conversation about 5 kinds of conditioning today, right now, because the research around this has just exploded in the last 15 years. You know, when Ra passed away in 2011, we weren't talking about epigenetics. We weren't talking about gene codes and the malleability in the gene code. We weren't talking about that yet because we didn't have the research, right? And now we're in a very different place. And so the information, what we understand about who we are and how we are, and the science of who we are and how we are has changed a lot. And so it has to naturally also change the conversation that we have about how did we get where we are right now. So traditional human design teaches about openness by center. We're also going to just briefly talk about imprinting, generational energy patterns, especially through the lens of human design, genetics, and lived experiences. So I want to just remind you that when we talk about no choice in human design, you actually don't have a lot of choice when you're conditioned. That 95% of you that's running the show, that's creating those amygdala fear responses, reactions, that's running the show. And here's the thing that's so important to understand. That amygdala is 4 times faster than your prefrontal cortex. So it is very easy. And if you have an amygdala response sometimes to something you don't want to have an amygdala response to, be nice to yourself, because of course you will always have a reaction sometimes, because that amygdala is very fast, right? It's 4 times faster than the prefrontal cortex, which means we have to really get intentional about the deconditioning process. And it has to be more than just following strategy and authority. Sometimes we really have to do more work than just that. So we don't have choice when we're conditioned. We don't. We are reactive and we are reacting to life when we are conditioned. Once we decondition, once we reclaim the sovereignty over our own story, then we have choice. And I would even say we have infinite choice. You won't want to have infinite choice. You'll want to choose the things that are yours to choose, but you do have infinite choice. So human design is a way of cataloging the story we're telling. Part of what I love so much about human design is when I say, well, you need to change your story. It's like, well, what part? Right? And your human design chart gives you a pretty nice map to help you explore what part maybe needs to change. It gives you a way of changing your personal narrative. It gives you a database of the parts of your story. It shows you your life and your soul curriculum, and it gives you a really powerful, unique path to optimizing your life. So it's an incredible tool, because when we look at that tool, it basically allows us to reclaim sovereignty over this filter. So let's go back to this 5 kinds of conditioning. So in traditional human design, when you look at your chart, you'll see that there are things colored in and things that are white. One of the things that I always teach, and this is important for you to understand, is that you all have all of the chart. Just because it's white on your chart doesn't mean you don't have it. It means that's a part of your chart where you receive energy from the world around you. And you don't just receive energy, you actually amplify it. And so when we amplify energy in our open centers, it creates predictable, intense behavioral patterns and responses. So, for example, if you go to your chart and you look at the right side of your chart and you have that big triangle on the right side of your chart, the emotional solar plexus, or we call it the creative center in quantum human design, if that's white on your chart, it means you are an emotional empath. When you go through the world, your life, and you walk through the grocery store, you're taking in all the emotional energy around you. You're receptive to that, and you're amplifying it. And that ultimately is your source of wisdom, right? You are able to read the room emotionally because you have this open center. But in the shadow, in the conditioned expression of that energy, you can learn patterns, behavioral patterns that allow you to control the energy around you. You might have learned to become a people pleaser. You might have learned to avoid difficult conversations and things where you need to talk about something truthful because you don't want to deal with the emotional blowback by people. You may have learned to keep everybody happy because when the outer environment is happy, you feel happy because you're not taking in other people's upset emotional energy. That openness by center is something that gets deconditioned. The more you connect with your authority and your body and how your body feels, you get better, you get more courageous, in this case, at being able to tackle those difficult conversations. And anywhere where we have openness, we ultimately have a task of learning how to self-regulate. The highest expression of that emotional center when it's open is to be able to hold on to your own level of faith and positive expectation, your own emotional regulation, no matter what's going on in the room around you. That's the lesson of the open center, of the open emotional solar plexus. So, when you learn your human design, one of the things you're going to learn is how do I self-regulate all my open parts? You're also going to learn, if you look at all the parts that are colored in, those are parts that energies that are sourced within you. And when you are living true to yourself, these defined parts, these colored in parts, are energies that you have consistent access to. And those are energies you're actually putting out in the world. And those are parts of yourself. Your job when you decondition is to learn to love and accept those parts of yourself. So that's part of what you're here to learn to really nourish and nurture within yourself and ultimately to optimize because that's how you are impacting others. And this becomes an important place of how you influence the energy in the room. We're also conditioned by imprinting, meaning even though we experience the energies of our core of our family, our core family when growing up, we're also imprinted by the way our families behave. And that's independent of the energy. And we can't discount that sometimes we imprint behavioral patterns that we see in our families and we take those into adulthood with us. And those don't have anything to do with human design, right? Those are just how things are in your family. And you have to decide eventually, based on how it feels in your body, is this actually a rule that I need to follow or can I let it go? You know, my mom is German. My grandmother is German. They had very strict rules about how you clean the house. And I'm not trying to insult anybody if you're from Germany. And it took me a lot of years to learn to consciously choose, do I want to do my laundry this way because I want to or because I've been imprinted to? Turns out I actually really want to do my laundry that way, and I've probably made another generation of people who really like to have super clean laundry. But that's my imprinting, right? And I had to really decide, is this what I want to be, how I want to be, or is this a learned behavior? And can I let it go? We know from human design that you actually inherit parts of your human design chart from your grandparents. And if you have children, your children will inherit parts of their chart from your parents. And so we see that human design sets us up to have these every other generation family patterns. And so when we decondition our own chart, we actually can change not only our own story, but the story of intergenerational energy patterns within our family. We know that we carry on a cellular level ancestral memory. Sometimes we call it karma. We carry ancestral memory. That ancestral memory can go back up to 14 generations. And some of our personality traits and how we react to life is based on ancestral responses. And when we decondition, we can also even change our ancestral lineage and heal our ancestral lineage. And of course, if we're talking about deconditioning, we don't also talk about lived experiences and how our life experiences have impacted us, our perception of ourselves and our story, we're missing the boat. We can't look at people and think that human design answers everything. And so part of what I'm just adamant about when I teach human design is we have to integrate other pieces of the human story into how we talk about human design because human design does not explain everything. Your chart is not going to tell you why you might be addicted to something, right? It might show that there are core wounds in your chart that might get triggered. And when you can understand those core wounds, you can start to work on addictive patterns. But there's no chart that says, oh, this person is designed to be an alcoholic, or this person is designed to have colon cancer, or this person. Chart is not a predictive tool. The chart is not a predictive tool. It's a map of how you use energy. And we have to, when we talk about it, make sure that we're really looking at it through that lens and not using it as a labeling system. Because when we do, then we stop being dynamic and we start being static and we lock down ourselves into an identity that doesn't grow and evolve with us. All right. Human design is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Hindu chakra system, the Judaic Kabbalah, the Chinese I Ching, and quantum physics. Well, what do all these systems have in common? Archetypes, right? They're just ancient and modern archetypes. And of course, when we think about an archetype is just a field of information on the quantum level. So if we think about, let's say in this case, the archetype of creator, well, that's a lot of potential, right? In the archetype of creator. That can be an artist, that can be an architect, that can be somebody who has a baby, that can be somebody who's good in the kitchen, that can be somebody who's an excellent manifester, not in the human design type, but somebody who's really good at setting an intention and making it happen, right? That can be somebody who's creatively frustrated. That can be somebody who's shut down their creative power. All of that is associated with the archetype of creator. It's a field of information. And when we are working with archetypes, right? These ideas, symbols, patterns, or character types in a story, if we start labeling ourselves, I'm a this, and this is what this means, and we define ourselves by this label instead of saying, wow, I play in the quantum field of being a creator, right? I play in the quantum field of being a manifester. I play in the quantum field of being a generator. I play in the quantum field of being a manifesting generator. I play in the quantum field of being a projector. I play in the quantum field of being a calibrator or a reflector. And that has a lot of infinite number of ways that it can be expressed. And we start to consciously decide for ourselves, how do I want to express that energy in the world? Then we take back control over our story. Then we reclaim our power. We are each living our own personal story that's comprised of the archetypes in our quantum human design chart. And we can't look at one part of the chart outside of the context of the whole, which is the other dilemma of traditional human design sometimes. And again, I'm not saying that this is how it's taught. I'm saying that our natural desire to want a label and to have this label that sort of, oh, okay, that explains everything, right? When we have these labels, sometimes it gets really easy to not have to do some of the other associated parts and to see that this chart is not just your personal story, it's a curriculum. It's a soul curriculum that contains within it all the information that you need, the challenges that you're here to overcome, to mature, to grow into in order to become the fulfillment of the true story that you were born to fulfill. And again, just bringing us back to kind of where we started, archetypes have conditioned expressions, baseline expressions, and quantum expressions, and beyond. And beyond, right? This is only three. There's an infinite number that an archetype of ways that an archetype can get expressed. And certainly when we teach and learn our own human designs, what we're really learning is what field of information am I designed to play in on a quantum level? And if I take back control, if I become sovereign over the story that I tell myself and the world about who I am and how I am, then what do I choose? What turns me on? What lights me up? What brings me the juice that I want to be activating and living in my life, to be expressing with my life? And I personally believe that we are happiest and most abundant and magical in our current awareness when we are creating in alignment with the highest expression of the archetypes that comprise the authentic self and our unique energy blueprint, right? Let's think about this in the context of, let's say, the archetype of hermit, right? If you think of the hermit, the story that we tell, right, when we learn hermit in the fairy tales is, the wicked witch that lives in the middle of the forest, 10 acres in the dark. And I don't know, she has a house made out of cookies and she eats children, right? That's our hermit archetype. Or maybe Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird, if you remember that story from when we read it in high school, right? It's this person that retreats away from the world. And that's an extreme example, right, of the hermit archetype. On the other side, on the higher expression of that archetype, we have somebody who is an introvert, who knows that when they go out into the world, they have to rebalance that external expression with some alone time to regenerate and to heal their energy. And if they understand that about themselves and they go through a major life transition, then that allows them to say, okay, I'm going through this major life transition. I need to make sure, as part of taking care of nurturing myself, that I build into this transformation that I'm going through some alone time so that I can regenerate and heal and restore myself, right? And I don't burn out. The information in the chart gives you important keys and clues and information that supports you in fully expressing your optimal wellness and well-being. You have to know who you are designed to be. Which archetype? Boy, I didn't think about the witch thing, but there's the witch's cottage, right? So don't eat the beautiful woman in the picture. You have to know who you are designed to be, which archetypes are part of your soul curriculum in order to know how you create what you truly want. That's really what the chart gives you. It gives you a way to know how you can start creating what you really want and making sure that what you're trying to create is actually in alignment with who you are, right? So, what problems do your clients have that keep them from reclaiming their power? Or what problems do you might have? What challenges do you have that might keeping you from reclaiming your power and cultivating well-being in every area of your life? Well, when I look at the major problems that my clients present to me, the first problem that my clients present to me is, how do I truly know who I am? And it always starts first with understanding your conditioning. You have to understand what made the story that you're telling about who you are. And how do you, in the context of that story, stay connected to your authentic self no matter what's going on around you? And that means you have to understand your type, your strategy, your authority. How does it feel in my body? And your open centers, because you have to know how to regulate yourself in circumstances and situations so that you can stay true to yourself no matter what's going on around you. Second problem that my clients often bring to me is, how do I make effective decisions, right? And that's where, of course, you have to get back in the body. I've been talking about this the whole time. Get back in your body and practice strategy by type until you reach baseline, until you're sitting in that baseline place and you trust that body connection so much that you don't question it anymore. When your sacral kicks in, or your spleen kicks in, or your authority, your ego authority kicks in, or your emotional authority kicks in, when that authority kicks in, then you trust it, you're not wondering how to make effective decisions anymore. That's a great thing that human design gives us. And when we use it with our clients, that's a tool that you can use to help show your clients how to reconnect. One of the other biggest problems that I see with my clients is that they're trying to create success following a rule book that wasn't written for them. And so one of the things that you learn to do when you use quantum human design is you learn to help yourself or your clients discover their unique way of creating so that they are creating with their energy and not against it. If I could just get everybody to do that, right? To not resist your natural way of being, to not judge it, to not override it, to really let yourself trust what you need and what you want and how you want it, and to do life, to do success that way. And sometimes that means also redefining success, right? What does success really mean for you? And it's different for all of us, right? I was a full-time single mom for a lot of years. Success for me was being done with work at 3 o'clock so I could drive kids around and fix a good home cooked meal for them every night and connect at the dinner table, because that was our way of staying connected. If I could do that, I was being successful, right? And sometimes we have to really redefine that success. Another question that my clients ask me a lot is, how do I know my gifts and how do I strengthen them? And of course, quantum human design is a powerful way to help your clients redefine and reclaim their natural gifts so that they really can truly fulfill their potential. And that, when you're working with your gifts and strengthening your gifts as opposed to trying to be something you're not, you liberate so much energy. When we talk about burnout, so many times when we talk about burnout, really what we're talking about is the end result of pushing against yourself over the course of a lifetime. And when we can move that resistance out of the way and step into the full expression of gifts, then we activate our energy. And of course, these are the things you learn to do as a quantum human design specialist. So I want to just share with you all, if you are interested in becoming a certified quantum human design specialist, we have a training program for you that gives you the training and the support you need to grow your quantum human design practice. The programs that we've created have an online self-paced learning component. So whether you're still you have a job and you want to work your way out of your job, whether you're at home with children, whether you're in between opportunities, this program, the way the training works, it actually gives you the freedom to be able to do a big bulk of the studying and learning on your own, at your own pace, in a way that works for you. So each level has a series of instructional videos, slides, study questions, additional student resources that you can complete in your own time and at your own pace. We've had people that have literally completed the entire program in 3 weeks. That person actually works on our team. She is amazing. And I've had people that have taken years, and it's all okay. You get to study in your way, at your own pace. I hate only learning by myself. I am a social creature. I need to be with other people. And of course, I live in a tiny town in Wisconsin, so that's not always possible. So one of the things that we added to our learning program was a big community component. So we have live forums. So once a week, you can, almost every week, you can call in on Zoom, be live on Zoom. We vary the time so it hits all the different time zones, where you can get online and get your questions about your studies answered. So we have virtual forums where you can ask questions. If you can't be there, you can submit your questions ahead of time and we'll answer your questions even if you're not there. We also have 24/7 access to a very private, exclusive online community of fellow students and specialists. There's really literally never a time of day when you can't be a part of our community and get your questions answered or get support. Sometimes people share chart readings, sometimes they bring questions about their clients. We have a very, very active community, and I'm extremely proud of the people in our community. It's pretty powerful. Once a month, we also have what we call Chart Chat Live. Hannah leads that. This is a skill building session that helps you become more comfortable and practiced with reading charts. So you get to actually practice reading charts with other human design students. That helps you build your confidence. It gets you connected with people in the community so you can support each other. And of course, experience the wisdom that you've cultivated through studying and learning. I'm going to show these briefly. Hannah and Tara, if you wouldn't mind posting the link to our wall of love. Here's just a couple of examples of what some of our students have said about us. On our website, we actually have what we call the wall of love. You can go to the wall of love and read some of the feedback that our students have left for us about their training and what they've experienced in this training. And if you're interested in doing the training, I encourage you to go there and really see what our students say about us. In Quantum Human Design Levels 1, we also give you access to business resources that help you start doing readings. So we've broken the training down into 4 levels, and literally after you complete level 1, which is relatively short, I mean, you could easily finish level 1 in a week or 2 if you chose to. You can start doing readings right away. And once you certify in readings, then we have all kinds of other opportunities and possibilities, business resources for you to access that can help you get started with your practice. So, okay. I'm not sure what's going on, but the video is not playing. There it is. Oh,
enrolling in Karen Curry Parker's Quantum Human Design certification training was by far the best investment that I've ever made in my coaching business. It's made me a better coach. It's made me a better human. And it's allowed me to be there, to be present for my clients in ways that simply weren't available before. Karen teaches human design in a way that no one else does. And her heart is imbued in every lesson. And anytime I see Karen is booked to speak somewhere or is scheduled to class, I sign up because there's always wisdom to be had. And I'm just so grateful for Karen and the Quantum Human Design teachings. And I could not recommend her and her team more highly.
thank you, Corinne. So, as I said, we have 4 levels of certification. It's online self-paced learning. Each level has a series of instructional video slides and resources for you. We've got live forums, online communities. If you've got questions, we've got answers. You can pretty much find an answer any time of the day or night. As I said, you can earn while you learn. Once you certify in level 1, you can begin using quantum human design in your business. That means you can begin earning money using quantum human design while you continue to study and increase your knowledge. And of course, you deserve to get paid for doing this good work. When you're ready, you can go deeper. Each level goes into more depth, so there's more material to cover as you go. And of course, how quickly you move through it is kind of up to you. And of course, you can amplify your training wisdom with live learning. All levels of training are self-paced, but level 4, that's our final level, we call it the art of chart reading, has an additional live component. So once you're certified in level 3, you receive access to live level 4 weekly Zoom calls with Q&As with me, practicum sessions with fellow classmates, and the level 4 trainings start every year in the fall. So just as my way of thanking you for being here today and listening and learning more about quantum human design, I want to share with you that all of our quantum human design professional trainings are going to be on sale for you at 22% off the regular tuition. So our quantum human design levels 1 through 2 bundle is regularly $1,345. You can get it from now until July the 8th for $1,049. And we do have really generous payment plan options as well. So that's a savings of $296. If you do all 4 levels, it's regularly $6,110. You will save $1,344. That's the cost is $4,766. And again, that we have generous payment plan options as well. So if you're interested, you can enroll using the coupon code EMPOWER22. So we'll post that in the chat for you as well. That coupon expires on July the 8th at midnight Central. And of course, we'll put the link in the chat for you as well if you want to register. I want to just remind you that the highest expression of humankind is a full engagement that allows us to evolve by learning and leaving the past behind. We're not designed to be stuck in the past. By consciously and consistently expressing our authentic potential and making our unique contribution to the world, taking our direction from spirit, being physically vital, having all the resources we need to fulfill our destiny, and taking actions that are only for the greater good of the world. In other words, we're designed to feel good, being who we are and doing what we came here to do. And as a really important nice aside, we're also designed to be nice to each other. So let's take good care of ourselves, be yourself. You being the real you are the greatest gift you can give to the world. If you're wondering, what is my purpose in the world? It's not what you do, it's who you be. You being your authentic self is your purpose in the world. And of course, as a quantum human design specialist, you get to help people remember their greatest gifts and you get to do your part to heal the world. So again, 22% off the tuition until the July the 8th. We'll put the registration information for you with the replay information, and of course in the chat as well. So, oh, Hannah, do we have any questions?
Okay, take some Q&A here. Hello, everyone. It's great to have you live with us. And if you're watching the replay, we're sending you all the QHD love. Okay. All right. So we have one question that came in. I'm a mental projector and I struggle with waiting for the invitation. How can I change that?
So this is actually not only true for you as a mental projector, but true for all projectors, and actually even true for generator types. But let's talk specifically about projectors. When we talk about projectors and we talk about being ready for the invitation, which is really part of what has to happen first to get an invitation, you have to be ready. And readiness really consists of a couple of things for a projector. Number one, and this is really important, do you have the energy for an invitation? And sometimes we don't. The projectors don't. And that's an honest but sometimes hard conversation a projector has to have with themselves. Do you have the energy for it? If you don't have the energy for it, then your number one job is to heal your energy. And sometimes that means you just got to go get a job, like a regular clock in, clock out kind of a job. Do whatever you have to do to make the minimum financial requirements you need to make. And then once you clock out, you're off. Go home, rest, put your feet up, whatever you need to do. And don't worry. And if you are fortunate enough to be able to have a little bit of a cushion financially, then do what you need to do. Take that time off to restock, replenish, regenerate yourself. And don't worry. And the reason why I'm saying don't worry is because when we worry, we burn energy, right? That's the fastest way to burn out. And so, number one, do you have the energy for an invitation? And if not, heal that piece. The second thing is you have to make sure that your self-worth is intact, that you are valuing yourself. Because oftentimes what happens for the projector is they're not valuing themselves. They'll tend to accept any invitation. And if you accept any invitation, especially if it's an invitation that doesn't reflect your value, then you're going to get yourself in a tape loop of repeating, getting into it, running out of energy, not being valued, not being heard, pushing, 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 being in resistance, trying to get seen. And it's going to be utterly exhausting. So we have to heal our self worth if you're a projector and heal your energy. And when those two pieces are in place, what usually happens is the invitations come pretty quickly. But you deserve to rest. You deserve to renew yourself. You deserve to recharge yourself. And you deserve to accept invitations that value yourself. And if you're not doing that, then that sometimes can actually block that invitation process. By the way, that's also can be kind of true for generators too.
Okay, what is the appropriate guidance for someone who has a defined throat center with the following activated gates 62, 56, 45, 33, and 31, with an open ESP with gate 6 and gate 36, but has conditioning that led to suppressing her voice and being a people pleaser?
So this is an open throat or not, or a generator?
Defined
throat. Just so I'm going. So tell me after the throat gates, what are the other gates defined?
An open ESP with gate 6 and gate 36.
Do we know type?
No, I'm guessing generator. but
I'm guessing generator two, but I don't know. So if that's your question, can you put your type in there? Here's what I'm going to say. If you are a generator type,
yes,
yes,
generator.
you're a generator type, get into your sacral. You got to get reconnected with what does your sacral feel like and what does that sacral response feel like? Because that's going to get your voice back. Because possibly what's happening is you're pushing your voice out and not waiting for something to respond to. And that waiting is part of protecting yourself. Because when we're waiting for something to respond to, excuse me, it means that you are waiting for the right environment, the right people who can really hear you. And if you're not waiting for people to give you something to respond to, and you're just putting energy and information and stories and all this creativity out into the world, because you've got creativity in spades in this chart, if you're putting that out into the world without waiting, you're wasting it. You're like casting pearls before swine. And though people aren't going to hear you, and you're probably pushing because they're not listening, instead of realizing, oh, these people don't see me because those are not my people. I need to go find the people that really have, the value, that see my value and really want to hear the stories and all the information and the practical applications of what I know into being. So put yourself in an environment where people ask you because that protects you from wasting your preciousness and your brilliance.
Okay, I have studied a traditional human design training. Do I like basically what makes this unique? Is it different than what I've already learned at other schools?
It will be different. It will be different. We definitely do both traditional and quantum human design. The piece that's different is that you'll also learn in conjunction with reviewing the traditional human design pieces, is you'll also learn the quantum human design. And so and we'll have a different conversation about choice and a different conversation that is a lot of our conversations are rooted in evidence, scientific evidence about how do we rewire the brain? How do we take back control from the amygdala and get that prefrontal cortex activated? How do we live true to who we are? How does that look in practical living? And of course, we add that quantum component, that quantum human design component, which again allows you to use the healing power of traditional human design, getting people back in touch with the body, with the body's response, and then also going that one step further and using it as an intentional storytelling tool that allows people to take back control over your how you respond to life, and of course how you can address and optimize people with your services.
Okay, next question. I'm a therapist who just started my human design journey as a calibrator. I'm having difficulty determining what my clients need versus what I can give to them that also supports and benefits me. My goal is to avoid burnout and pouring my energy into misaligned actions.
So that's probably not something I can answer just in one question, but I would certainly say um, a calibrator therapist is very interesting. It's so interesting. I just actually had a really great like hour-long conversation with two calibrator therapists recently at a conference. And I would say, you actually have a really beautiful and powerful ability to know what your clients need when you learn how to really work with your open centers. Um, and so really learning how to understand the way your open centers work. And part of, I would say, if I was going to give it a sort of a one-liner, I would say you have to learn how to be a screen and not a sponge. Because you have to really be present and see and sense their energy and be able to read it and not take it in and either feel responsible for it or process it with a model of care that maybe you've been trained in. So it does kind of invite you to get a little bit out of the box, and become a little bit more responsive than maybe you've been trained to be in some cases. I certainly would say anybody can build a business. Any type can build a business. There's a lot of mythology around business by design. And I would say there are so many different kinds of business models, and different ways to do business. The thing that I would say is that setting up a business, especially one that becomes sustainable, and for you as a reflector or a calibrator, that process of learning how to sustain the integrity of your energy may mean that you have to really discover like how do you want to deliver your services. This is true for any of us, but I would say projectors and reflectors or orchestrators and calibrators especially, how much can you do one-on-one and not be burned out? What does that feel like? And you may need to experiment a little bit to sort of figure out how many one-on-one clients do I need? How many one-on-one clients can I handle energetically? And you may want to use a business model that allows you to then look at how do you deliver your services more one to many, right? Do you do workshops? Do you do trainings? Do you do intensives? Do you do retreats? There's lots of different ways to structure your business, but you have to first know how your energy works. And that's going to be partially in the chart, but not only in the chart. I think when you have an open sacral, so in other words, if you're a projector or a manifestor or a reflector, sustainability becomes an extra important thing to pay attention to. And most types with that kind of a configuration, a manifestor, a projector, or reflector, do better with doing delivery of services one to many or having very few one-on-one clients and do mostly one to many service, offer one to many kinds of services, but not all. There's no hard and fast rule. It really is about you experimenting and exploring with different business models to find the one that really works with you, for you.
Awesome. Okay. I am brand new to human design. Is it okay to jump right into certification or should I self-study and do other courses first?
Oh, do just go straight into certification. You're going to end up there anyway, probably if you're already here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to be facetious. I'm saying human design is weird. I mean, I love it. Obviously, I love it so much. I'm 20, almost 26 years later. I'm still here. But I really feel like human design calls people. And if you're already here on a class and you're already studying on yourself, just take the training. You're going to get in a very systematic way all the information that you need. You won't be piecemealing it from here and from YouTube and this book and that book. So I would definitely encourage you to do it. And you don't have to have any kind, you could walk in completely not even knowing what human design is and take the training and start tomorrow. So
Yeah, I agree. It's like why try to convolute with all of the other things out there? It's nice to have everything in one place. It's nice to have a community and support that you can lean into and places to ask questions and connect with real humans. I feel like we have had a whole projector cohort forming in our chat today, so that's been great to witness. Okay, next question. I'm a 6'2" splenic projector with no defined motors. What's the best way to be healthy and generate energy? And how do I know when to interrupt a defined ESP client who just wants to keep talking when I think I got this splenic hit of what their problem is and I don't want them to stay stuck in their story by retelling it?
I love that. I always teach my students one of the biggest things you're going to have to learn, especially if you have an open emotional solar plexus, is how to interrupt, right? It's because it's so hard. When we have an open solar plexus, we're like, oh, I don't want to make anybody mad. But so here's what I do because I have a similar configuration. I'm not a projector though, is I will say, can I stop you for just a minute? I want to share with you an insight that I have, and I want to see if you resonate with this, right? And then share it. And they're either going to go, oh, or they're going to be like, nope, that's not it. And then they'll come back tomorrow and say, oh my God, I was thinking about that. And you're right, right? And I don't know what else to say. It takes a lot of courage to learn how to politely interrupt. Just do it. Just do it because your spleen is telling you just do it. So.
Okay, what can I expect after certification? Other than offering readings, how else could I share QHD and generate income?
That is also kind of an unlimited thing. But here's some ideas that we have that we work with people. You could do human design parties, or you could do kind of like Tupperware parties, but human design parties, and you can go do a little mini human design workshop and then do readings and use that as a way to sell more readings, bigger readings. You can do a human design talk. You can teach workshops. You can go do retreats. You can go to chiropractors' offices and do readings in conjunction with some of their clients and their clients' cares. There's probably, you can go to expos and sell readings at expos. There's a lot of different ways that you can turn human design into a business, and it's kind of as unlimited as your creativity. So you can sell online classes. You can sell reports. You can, yeah, lots and lots of ideas.
Awesome. I love this question. Karen, are you excited about how the world is now catching up to everything you've known for over 20 years? You've paved the way for us. Thank you.
Who asked that? Oh my God. I'm not a projector. If I thought I knew something, I was only guessing, I promise. That's such a sweet thing to say. I would say, yeah, of course. I would like to retire. But I would like to go hang out with my grandkids. I have a fantasy of writing novels. Yeah, I could stop talking about human design and go do anything, right? But here I am. So it's exciting. I think, it's hard. I would say, and I think you can say this too, Hannah. Like I think I've really noticed people seem right now especially stressed, right? Especially concerned about where we're at. And I would say for me, I mean, certainly if I look at it right now where we are on the trajectory, it's a little bit of a concerning time, but everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. We are exactly where we're supposed to be in the timeline of the evolution that we're in. And it's not easy, and it's probably going to have some bumpy parts. The thing that's important to remember is you can't let the story of what seems to be falling apart and the delusion in the interim cause you to lose your course. And that's hard because I would say the people that I have the privilege of attracting, all of you all have giant hearts and you feel the world so deeply. And it is so easy to not, I mean, to just get knocked off your center. If you have an open heart, it's hard, right? It's hard. And there are a lot of things that are happening that you don't have a lot of control over. And we can feel guilty, we can feel ashamed, we can feel discouraged to not be able to control those things we can't control, right? And what we have to be doing right now is consciously creating the alternative and not letting the reality of the tragedy. I mean, obviously, if you do see something you can do it. By God, do it. And to not let ourselves get distracted away from our role right now, particularly if we are safe and we are in a good place. Our job right now is to keep building something better. I'm going to butcher this. There's a Buckminster Fuller quotation that says, you can't fight the existing reality, right? The way in which we grow and we evolve is to build something better. And instead of having to fight people to come over there, we just build it better and they're attracted to it. That's really kind of where we need to be right now. And that takes a daily practice. That takes being so deeply anchored into our authentic self, our purpose, who we are, why we're here at this time, especially, and to strengthen that muscle of not letting the delusion of the moment cause us to get distracted from. We are here to build the future, and we are here to do our best to get there as fast as possible so that we can minimize the damage in this cycle that we're in. I don't know what else to say. I mean, and that, other than every morning, I have this probably the same experience as you. I get up every morning and it takes me a good 45 minutes to an hour to get myself readjusted to go back out there because it's hard. And I have grandchildren and they're little, and I have a daughter still at home who's 16, and my heart just hurts. And we can't get distracted. We have to just keep focused on the faith that we are building something better and doing whatever we can do in the meantime.
Beautiful. Okay, let's take a few more questions. I know we have a few more minutes here. I'm a professional dancer and movement coach. I would love to use QHD to help my clients move the energy of their bodies to help them feel in their power. What would you recommend me to look for in their charts? Thank you so much.
So there again, that's a little bit of a tricky question. It's not because what I would say is a couple of quick hits. Number one, look at where there's openness, because probably wherever there's openness is where they've been holding. And when they're holding that energy instead of allowing it to flow through them, they need that movement to release it, right? And so, again, just letting yourself looking at where people may be holding is important. That would be where I would start. I think it also is really good. And sorry, I'm going to do shameless plug of my new book. Quantum Wellness is coming out August the 20th, my new book. That when you understand people's stories based on their chart, you'll also get a better sense of what kind of movement they need to be doing, and what they need to be maybe even healing or reconnecting with that movement. But I'd start with the open centers. That's probably my easy answer.
Okay, I'm a 64-year-old 6'3" emotional generator, and I'm just now learning this material. Even though I'm way past 50, I still very much feel in my line 3. hoping I can get to my line 6 faster. Any advice for older learners?
I love that. I always joke. I'm a 60-year-old sixth line, and I always joke I'm not a third line, but I play one on TV. I feel like that third line still lives in there a lot. Like I think I've got it all figured out, but then not really. So I would say the greatest gift we can give ourselves is to allow ourselves to be where we are without resistance. And so I would definitely say, um, embrace the third line part of yourself. Don't judge yourself. Just keep getting, she said generator, right? Just keep getting back in touch with that sacral. It will save your life. It will, the more you follow it, the more it will unlock your truth, the more it will reconnect you with what's right, the more it will lead you where you need to go to learn what you need to learn. There's no such thing as a late learner. You're just a learner. You're exactly where you are and exactly where you need to be, right? So, I just need to answer this. In the chat, people are asking, can you get the Quantum Wellness book anywhere else but Amazon? Yeah, anywhere, any major online bookstore, retailer, even bookshop.org. You can go and get it there too. You can get it on Barnes and Noble. You can get it, I think you can get it at Walmart. So it's kind of up there, and maybe Target. Um,
Okay, I think that is where we can wrap up for today. I'm going to drop the link one more time in chat here for certification if you're feeling called and inspired to join us in our school.
I would say, I just want to say, if you're, inspired and want to call and join us, think about this. I'm gonna give you all a story as you kind of say goodbye. If you look at a puzzle, the sum total of the pieces in a puzzle make the beauty of the puzzle. So many times we think that our unique job, our little role doesn't affect anything. You are a part of a puzzle. And if you are trying to jam yourself into a spot where you don't fit, or you're trying to rip parts of yourself off to fit somewhere where you don't belong, you're actually impacting not only your own life, but the face of the entire puzzle. You are part of a cosmic puzzle. You have a right place and a right space, and you are a once in a lifetime cosmic event. Whether you're here to lead and teach and guide others, or whether you're here to discover your right place for yourself. If you feel called to learn human design, join us. And I will be honored. It would be an honor for all of us to serve as your guides and your teachers. So thank you. Be well. Take good care of yourselves. Thank you, Hannah, for being here. Thank you, Tara. Thank you for everyone in the chat and for joining us. It's been an honor to be with you for the last little bit. Take care. Bye.